on, children.
They called him a clown, a hillbilly, a comedian. But there was far more to this man than funny clothes and a banjo. David Akeman was born in 1915 in Annville, Kentucky. The son of a sharecropper, he grew up in a world where money was scarce. But music, that was free, if you could find a way to play it. His father owned a banjo, but there was just one problem. David was too young, too small to play it. He'd watch, mesmerized, as his father's fingers danced across the strings, creating sounds that felt like home. He wanted to play, needed to play. But if you were poor in rural Kentucky, you didn't just go out and buy an instrument. So young David did what any determined country boy would do. He built his own. Using whatever scraps he could find, he fashioned a crude banjo out of a shoebox and a piece of thread. And that's how it started. By the time he was a teenager, he had mastered the real thing. Not just playing it, but playing it well. Well enough that he started winning banjo contests, traveling across Kentucky, proving that this quiet boy from the hills had something special. His break came in the 1930s when he landed a spot on a radio station in Lexington. His picking was sharp, his timing impeccable. But there was just one problem. His name, David Akeman, it just didn't stick. And one night, when he walked into the studio, the announcer, struggling to recall his name, just blurted out, "Come here, Stringbean, and pick us a tune." And just like that, David Akeman was gone. Stringbean was born. The name stuck. So did the talent. By the 1940s, he had caught the attention of a man who would change his life, Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass. Monroe had revolutionized country music, but his band was missing something, a banjo player. Stringbean took the job, and for 4 years he played alongside Monroe, bringing the banjo front and center in the bluegrass sound. But Monroe wasn't just a musical genius. He was a businessman, and he had an idea. Stringbean was already a fantastic musician, but Monroe saw something else, a personality, a way to stand out. He told Stringbean to lean into his lanky build, to play up his country roots. And so, the oversized shirts, the comically short pants, and the ever-present bib overalls became his signature look. And it worked. The music world took notice. By the 1950s, Stringbean was a Grand Ole Opry star. He wasn't the smooth, polished country singer of the day. He didn't croon like Hank Williams or write poetic lyrics like Johnny Cash. But he didn't have to. He had something different, something special. Stringbean was authentic, and the audiences loved him. He wasn't just a musician, he was a performer, a storyteller, a man who could make you laugh 1 minute and leave you in awe of his banjo skills the next. And then came television. In 1969, Hee Haw debuted on CBS, and Stringbean was one of the first names on the call sheet. The show was built on corny humor, country music, and good-natured fun. And Stringbean fit in perfectly. His deadpan delivery, his wide-eyed expressions, and that slow, deliberate Southern drawl made him a fan favorite. Week after week, America tuned in to watch Stringbean tell jokes, pick his banjo, and remind everyone why country music was fun. But off stage, he wasn't what people expected. The loud, laughing, wisecracking Stringbean was quiet, private, a man who preferred fishing and hunting to parties and fame. Unlike many of his peers, He wasn't interested in big cars or fancy houses. He lived in a modest cabin in the country with his wife Estelle, and while country stars of the era were making fortunes and spending them just as fast, Stringbean had a different philosophy. He didn't trust banks. He had grown up during the Great Depression, when banks failed and people lost everything. So instead of trusting his money to a vault, he carried it in his pockets, in his overalls, in his house. Rumors swirled that Stringbean had thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars stashed away in his home. And unfortunately, rumors can be dangerous. Because while Stringbean was known for his humor, his kindness, and his music, that's not the only reason people remember him. On the night of November 10th, 1973, he played his final show at the Grand Ole Opry. He laughed, he sang, he told stories backstage with his best friend, Grandpa Jones. Then he got into his car and drove home. And he never came back. What happened that night shook Nashville to its core, and it changed country music forever. But that's another story. Because this story isn't about how Stringbean Akeman died. It's about how he lived. He lived as a man who never forgot where he came from, a man who never let money change him, a man who picked his banjo the way it was meant to be played, not for fame, not for fortune, but for the simple love